Have you ever seen a home that looks small from the outside, but is much larger on the inside? Well, you're about to. From the street, this home is dark, quiet, and deliberately restrained, wrapped in black timber and tucked into the trees, giving almost nothing away. And so you'd never guess it's a reworked 1960s mid-century home, or that it opens up into layers of light, greenery, and views stretching deep into the bush. And that contrast is the whole idea, because this house is closed to the outside world, but expansive where it matters most. It hides from the street, but fully embraces the landscape behind it, stepping down the site, opening up to the trees, and pulling light through a central courtyard that organizes everything around it. And so by the end of this video, you'll see how this home answers a unique kind of design question, which is, what happens when you build a home like an iceberg with only a tiny sliver of it visible from the front door? So when you pull up to this home, the first thing you notice is how dark it is, because the whole house is wrapped in black timber cladding, these vertical boards that run from floor to ceiling. And it sits tucked into a steep bush block surrounded by eucalyptus trees with those gnarly trunks and wispy branches that are filtering the natural light. And there's this old drooping willow sitting in the front garden, and the house kind of disappears behind it. Now, the entry is up top, so you walk along this gravel path edged with sandstone boulders and these native grasses, and everything feels wild but intentional, like someone planted it and then just let it do its thing. The young trees here are staking their claim between the rocks, and the ground cover is already filling in. But the facade itself is pretty quiet. It's just black timber with a few carefully placed windows, some that are full-height glass, while others are small punched openings. The shadows from the surrounding trees move across the surface of the home all day long, so the house never looks the same twice. And so it's got this presence, but it doesn't shout. Now, the thing is, this isn't a new house. It's actually a complete renovation of a mid-century home that used to be falling apart. But from the street, you'd never know that, because the black cladding covers the original blockwork and gives it this unified contemporary shell. So it's basically a new skin over old bones. Now, as you move around the site starts to reveal itself. The lot drops really steeply, so the house actually steps down in 3 levels following that slope. The upper level is where you enter, and that's where you have the living spaces with views out to the treetops. And then the middle level sits a bit lower, and it's wrapped around a central courtyard. And then the bottom level hugs the ground and connects to the lower garden. They've got these beautiful timber-framed balconies cantilevered off the bush-facing side, with thin wire balustrades, timber decking, and vertical timber screening for shade. And each level gets its own outdoor space, and it feels kind of like it's floating in a different layer of the canopy. The top level has a view of the sky and the distant water, the middle level is surrounded by branches, and the bottom level opens up to ferns and other sorts of understory plants. So you step up to the front door, and immediately you're looking through the house. The entry is at the top level, and it's basically a glass box with a timber frame door painted this deep green that matches the exterior cladding. They've got 2 big white paper lanterns hanging in the entry space, and you can see straight through to the courtyard and the trees beyond. 3 white paper lanterns, which are the Akara light sculptures from Isamu Noguchi, hang above the stairs on thin cords, suspended at different heights. And in the evenings, they're gonna glow softly and cast this gentle light over the entryway. When you open the door, you're in this narrow entry hall with a built-in bench on one side, in blonde timber with a little shelf below it for shoes. But what I really like about the space is the ceiling, because you've got a few timber beams, but above that, a massive skylight that's letting a ton of natural light pour in. And as the light changes throughout the day, it's gonna throw different shadows across all the surfaces in this room. So even though the entryway itself is actually very small, just this very narrow corridor, it feels so large because there's a massive amount of natural light pouring in through the floor-to-ceiling windows and the skylight overhead, but also because there's this large void next to it, which is the stairwell. We're going to look a little closer at the stairs in a couple minutes, but for now, I just want you to understand that even if you don't have a lot of floor space to allocate to a particular part of your home, there are ways that you can still make that space feel expansive by getting a little more creative. But now let's move into the living room. They've got this pale wood floor running from wall to wall, and the ceiling is painted a really crisp white that makes the room feel calm and bright, but with that mid-century restraint where everything has a place, but nothing's overdone. They've got this black leather sofa sitting low on its tapered wooden legs, and it's set right on the edge of this soft green rug that's really anchoring this part of the room. And next to the sofa is a brass floor lamp with a rust-colored shade that's angled directly over the seating area. There's a very simple black coffee table sitting in front of the sofa, and across from that, a matching black armchair. So the furniture feels really considered in here. It's a little bit luxe, but still not trying too hard. And I want you to notice that the sense of calm that's present in this room isn't coming from any one particular object. It's coming from how the house controls what you see, when you see it, and especially the way it hides from the street and only opens up toward the landscape. And that inside-out logic is exactly the kind of thing we dig much deeper into inside my private community, because once you understand these kinds of decisions, you start spotting why certain homes feel grounded while others feel out of place. So if you want to dig deeper and understand what's truly going on here, there's a link in the description. Now, what's nice about this room is how the space is divided without walls. Now, behind this seating area, there's a built-in shelving unit, and it's got a couple of books, a few small plants, and some glassware on there. I would have liked it if they had another seat or two back there to increase the utility of this corner of the room, but even the way it is, there's clearly a calm, relaxing atmosphere on this level of the home, and especially with the view out the window, I'm sure it's a nice space to grab a book, grab a cup of tea, and just hang out and spend some time. Now, the dining area sits in the same open space as the living room, just a little bit closer to the entryway. As you can see here, they've got a long wooden table with 6 mid-century dining chairs arranged around it, and I can't tell exactly which chair they've got here, but they do look quite a bit like Hans Wegner's CH20 elbow chair, which was a super popular design. And then above the dining table, they've got just a single pendant light that's going to cast a really soft glow over the dining table in the evenings. And behind the table, you can see straight through to the entryway and through the windows to the front yard. And so the whole upper level of this property is visually connected. You're never just in one room, but instead, you're always aware of the other spaces around you. But by far, the most impressive part of this dining room is the view. Because when you're sitting at this dining table, you've got an unobstructed view of the tree canopy outside. And it really feels like you're sitting right inside the trees themselves. Plus, there's a balcony running the entire stretch of this level, and so when those sliding doors are open, the dining area extends right out onto the deck, and the trees come almost all the way up to the railing, letting the dappled light filter through into the home. And so you can sit out there in the morning with a coffee or in the evening with a glass of wine, and you're pretty much suspended in the canopy. The ceiling on the balcony is painted this soft green that complements both the furniture and the trees, and it makes the whole upper level feel wrapped and unified, like you're inside of a tent or a pavilion. Plus, having that deep roof overhang helps to soften the direct sunlight while still maintaining uninterrupted views into the trees. Now, the kitchen sits at the far end of the open plan upper level, tucked into the corner but still connected to everything else. And it's built around this wooden island that doubles as a breakfast bar with 4 wooden stools pulled up to one side here. And the stools have green seats in the same soft green that we see consistently throughout the rest of the home. But speaking of green, the backsplash is really the star here. It's covered in small square tiles in this beautiful mossy green that run the full length of the wall behind the counter, and the tiles have a bit of variation to them, so some are a bit lighter, some are a bit darker, and so the entire surface feels textured and alive rather than flat and boring. And here above the backsplash, they've got a floating shelf in the same wood as the cabinets, which is styled with a few plants, a framed print, and a few ceramic vases. The joinery in here is super clean and minimal with push-to-open doors and drawers, and so everything sits flush with no hardware breaking up the surface. And I really love that they've got this nice square window over the sink that looks straight out onto the trees. It's got a really sleek wooden frame, and between the window and the glass door on the left side, you'll get a ton of airflow through here when you're cooking or just washing up. And then to the right of the island, they've got this tall pantry unit where I'm assuming they have the fridge and possibly the oven as well. And so this isn't the largest kitchen by any means, but because they have so much natural light coming in from multiple angles, and because they've kept the color palette in here neutral with the exception of this beautiful green backsplash, it's going to be a really nice place to spend time. Now, when you head back to the front door, that's when you hit the stairs, which head down through that large cavity that we saw next to the front door. Now, most homes would never allocate this much space to a stairwell, but I think it was the right move for them here because the home is set on such a steep slope. Because what this means is that getting natural light into the lower levels of this home is going to be completely impossible other than for a few hours of the day. But by including this central courtyard, they allow natural light to pour in from above and reach into the deeper parts of this home. So even though they've made this really nice and airy, especially by including some plants here around the stairs, I wouldn't recommend this for most homes unless you have an architectural restriction like they had here by building on the steep slope. Because if you're just building a regular home on a regular lot, this will generally be more of a waste of space than it is something that actually adds utility to your home. But now let's take a look at one of the bedrooms in here, because just like we saw upstairs, the bedroom also has an incredible view thanks to the sliding glass doors that open up to the bush-facing balcony. The bed here is dressed in this soft sage linen, and it sits on a low wooden platform with some slatted detailing which gives it a real mid-century look. They've got a vintage wooden dresser with some black hardware across from it, and a simple wooden chair with some brown leather upholstery next to the window. The floor in here is a similar pale wood to what we saw upstairs, and I appreciate that they've painted the ceiling fan white to let it blend right in with the ceiling itself. They've got sheer white curtains hanging on a track across the balcony doors, which will filter the light and soften the views when they're drawn. And then the balcony is right there, just a step through the sliding glass doors, and you're right outside. Now, tucked off the bedroom, there's also this small study nook, which is a little tight, but it's still functional. It's got this wooden desk on the left side, and on the back wall, some open shelving and some storage below. Now, right now they've got it set up with a keyboard here, so I imagine someone in the family enjoys playing music, but this would also be a really good spot to get some work done. And then the bedroom also has an ensuite bathroom, with the floor tiled in a similar shade of green to what we've seen again and again throughout this home. And on the walls, they've gone with a slightly larger format tile in cream to provide a really stark contrast between the deep green underfoot and the lighter tones on the walls and ceiling. They've gone with a really simple wooden vanity here, but one change I would have liked to have seen them make is to extend the vanity out to both walls, because right now they've got some dead space on either side of the vanity that isn't being used and frankly can't really be used. But if they had extended the vanity out a little bit wider, it would have just given them some more space to store their everyday essentials, toothbrushes, lotions, whatever they need to use, because right now they do have the floating wooden shelf above the vanity, which is definitely a nice addition, and they have some storage space below, but there's not a lot of space around the sink to put the things that you're grabbing every single day. Now, let's quickly head down to the lowest level of the home, because this is where they have the guest accommodations. And to be honest, I haven't been able to find any detailed shots of what's going on down here, but I think it's just good to know that they have the third level, the lowest level of the home, completely allocated to guests. So if you're building your own home and you want to host guests more than a couple times a year, it's a good idea to consider building a separate wing specifically for guests where they can enter and exit the home at their own leisure and still maintain their semblance of privacy even while they're staying with you. That's exactly what they've done here in this home, and they've executed it extremely well. So as you've seen, the architecture of this home doesn't try to impress you. Instead, it chooses to slowly reveal itself, level by level and moment by moment. For example, the dark timber cloaking the house isn't about drama, it's about protection, because it shields the house from the street, from excess heat, and from noise, and then quietly gives way to light, greenery, and openness at the back of the home. And so what could have been a defensive gesture instead becomes something calm and deliberate. And what really makes this home work isn't just the materials or the detailing, it's the decision to work with what was already there. The original structure, the slope of the land, and all the existing trees, and build a better experience around it rather than starting from scratch. And so this house really shows that renovation doesn't have to be about erasing the past. It can be about refining and deepening it. And in this case, that means letting a modest mid-century home evolve into something more layered, more efficient, and more connected to its surroundings than what was ever there before. The thing is, you'll only truly grasp what this home has done so well if you see another home that achieves this same level of calm in a completely different setting. So watch this video next, where I look at a home on a busy street that's still managed to completely close itself off to the world. I'll see you there.